Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are all really excited to deliver this webinar today, Marketing Strategy and Creating Engaging Content. So wherever you're squeezing us in for this webinar today, we're grateful for your time and for being here. The QR code is on the screen. If you want to scan it, you can sign up to be part of Business Link's email list and get access to webinars and updates. And then Linda, who is behind the scenes today, is going to be sharing a poll just for everybody as we settle in. So, question for you, what are your biggest challenges when it comes to content marketing? Is it the ideation phase, coming up with content? Is it the creation part and being consistent? Or perhaps it's reaching the right audience, measuring the results of your content, or just finding time to do it all? So, let us know, and we'll share the results of that a little bit later. And before we get started today, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. Business Link acknowledges and respects that we are on traditional land, meeting grounds, territories, gathering places, and traveling routes of Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, and the home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the lands of those who have come before us, reside here now, and in the future. Just some housekeeping things to talk about today. In the bottom menu bar, you'll find the Q&A button. We encourage you to ask questions along the way. Let us know, if you have any burning questions or little questions about the content that we'll be sharing and best practices today. This webinar is being recorded, and all the slides in it and the content will be available on our YouTube channel following the webinar. And with that being said, I'd like to welcome you to our Content Marketing Strategy webinar. My name is Amy Thompson. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Business Link. Business Link is a nonprofit government-funded organization. We help small business owners across Alberta start and grow their business. And all of our services are free, as well as our programs. Take a look at our website if you haven't already. And thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to turn it over to our speakers now. I want to introduce Megan Jobson and Brian Blaze. They're of 910 Inc., and they are regulars here on our Business Link webinars. So take it away. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Amy, and everyone on the background from the Business Link team. Sure love our partnership. And the reason why we love the partnership is because we're also focused on supporting small, medium businesses in Alberta. We're located in Grand Prairie, Alberta, but we are a virtual team. And really, we represent Western Canada, but we sure do love Alberta. That's where where we live and where we focus most of our attention. So I wanted to just give a high-level overview, and then we'll introduce it to Megan. So we have a small, nimble team, and we work together to really support small, medium businesses. Megan, who will be leading today's session, runs our Digital Marketing Training Academy. And the development of our training academy about 2.5 years ago, actually, we did it sometime during COVID, was because it really aligned with our mission. And so effectively, our mission is to work with small, medium businesses within the province to help them establish their brand and then ensure that they have the right foundation in place so that they can execute their brand online increasingly with digital marketing tools and platforms, and increasingly with the support of AI. So if you just sort of fast forward to our vision, is that if you're a small, medium business in the province, we're going to put you in a place to be able to develop your brand, ensure that you have the right online foundation, and we're going to give you the skills, the confidence, and the tools to manage a lot of your digital marketing. If you need support along the way, we got you. But if you're trying to build your internal capacity so that you can manage much of this on your own, that's really what we're trying to do. And so we are what's called a full service digital agency. And really what that means is that we can help you with lots of different elements. And so this chart here is meant to be sequential. And so when we're working with small, medium businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, the starting point is always the brand. The brand is really who you are and what you're about, and a lot of information about your target audience. And so it's when you do a brand thoroughly, it's the equivalent of also pulling out all of the information that's going to be in your marketing plan. So once that brand is in place, then we can begin the work with you to design your visual standards, your logo, any of your print materials. We can help you get established with your website, which may or may not include e-commerce. We can then get into the world of digital marketing, which will include search engine marketing like Google, digital marketing like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And then in the training academy is where we transfer knowledge and build your skills so you can pull all of this together. And again, and increasingly, we're really introducing AI because it's such a great tool to help you with efficiency, with creativity, with brainstorming. And then ultimately, we have now introduced in 2025 a technology platform that gives you the same tools that we use when we're executing marketing on your behalf. You can use these same tools as well. So with that, I will hand it back over to Megan, and today's focus is going to be on content strategy. And guess what? Content strategy comes out of the brand foundation as well. So over to you, Megan.
Mhm. Thank you so much. Yes, so really foundationally, marketing strategy, content strategy, anything that we're really trying to do in business at all is get you in front of the right people, right? We need to make sure that the right customers, the right audiences are actually able to understand what you offer. And all of that comes from your brand. So, Ryan referred to this earlier when he had that chart up on the screen there, but looking at the very first piece of any marketing strategy, of any marketing endeavor, is the brand, right? You can't get yourself in front of new people, in front of the right people, if you don't understand A, who you are, and B, who that right person is. So when you're starting out with that marketing strategy, the content strategy, understanding how to get the right content out, it starts with you. It starts with your brand. It starts with understanding who you are, who your audience is, and how to speak to them. One key piece to keep in mind, and I find that a lot of people almost kind of forget about this element, is that when you are developing a marketing strategy of any kind, you have to remember that you have different audience groups, and those audience groups are going to speak to a little bit differently each and every time. A couple months ago, or a couple sessions ago, we did audience personas and how to identify your target audience. This is the reason behind wanting to do that, is because each of your audience insights are going to be a little bit different, right? The way that this lovely lady is speaking to this person versus this person, versus this person, is going to be slightly different. And so we have to develop our content and marketing strategy around what those audience groups look like and what they need. They're going to receive your message and your tone a little bit differently based on their needs and what they're looking for from you. And so it's really important to identify those different audience groups before you start planning any sort of strategy, because that's really foundational to how you communicate with them, right? You can't share an effective message on the right platforms if you don't know where your audiences are going to be. You have to define your brand voice and your brand tone in relationship to your audiences and who they are in order to be effective in that way. Amy, I know you are a communications expert. Did you want to share anything about how you approach communicating with different audience groups?
Yeah, I think in addition to communicating with the different groups, it's important to think about where they are in the customer journey and what they might be open to. So some type of content might be really good to help you for creating awareness and prospecting. But then I'm sure, Megan, you're going to talk about that long form content that's really educational, that's drawing people in and really sharing your expertise. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's one thing we consider.
Yeah. And that's such a great segue into the next point as well, because what we're really looking at doing is building content for longevity, right? Building evergreen content that can be used in many different aspects, in many different ways. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, just to jump in here. So there's a question from Kieran, and just a reminder, if you have questions, we'll more likely be able to get to them if they're in the Q&A. But it's related to the slide here, where the slide is sort of one of the things it's showing is that you will have multiple different target audiences for your business. And the question was, can AI define and find your target market for you? And the answer to that is no, or at least you should not ask AI to do that for you. But AI would be a really good tool to help facilitate the questions such that you can ultimately determine and make some decisions on who your target audience is. So in the same way that 910, if you engage us as a consultant, we're not going to tell you who your target audience is. You know your customers best, and it'll depend on your demographic region and your products and your services. But we could certainly facilitate a discussion and a series of questions that would draw out that information. So AI, when used properly, would be a tool that would help facilitate that. Back to you,
Yeah,
Meg.
absolutely. And just kind of a follow-up question in the chat there. How do you find your ideal audience and your target market? That is a really broad, big conversation. I think that video is up on the Business Link YouTube channel as well. So if you take a look through their playlists over on their YouTube channel, that information will be there for sure. All right. So let's kind of go back to touch on what Amy was saying about how content is based, or how people receive content is really also based on where they are in the customer journey and what kind of content they're going to be receiving. So this is where we get into something called rented versus owned digital property, where we can kind of look at this scope of what digital property is and where you exist online and where your customers might be, right? So some people might be in the phase of just kind of finding out who you are and what your services are. And maybe they don't know your brand name very well at all. They're probably going to be finding you on Instagram, Facebook, maybe Google My Business, right? Maybe they're searching for some keywords on Google search. So that's one phase. Maybe another phase is that they found you on social media and they then go to read some of your blog posts, right? That's where we're driving people back to our website. Another phase would be through email marketing, right? So they have opted into your email list and you are now in the phase of lead nurture, right? So you have engaged them, they've expressed interest in you, your product, your service, and now we're starting to develop a closer relationship. So all of these platforms come together for one unified kind of customer experience journey along the way. So when we're thinking about a good content strategy, it should always reflect your brand substance. So who you are. Every piece of content that you put out, regardless of where it is, the type of content, should always go back to who you are foundationally and who your target audience is, right? Should always address their needs and their pain points. A good content strategy should always build towards your brand and business goals, right? So establishing what it is that you are trying to accomplish will be kind of that guiding factor along the way, right? A good content strategy should incorporate all of your platforms seamlessly. So what we were talking about with the website and the social media and the email and the Google My Business, all of those platforms should have a consistent voice. They should speak to your customers easily and effectively and use the message that you've laid out in your brand, right? Always use your brand expression. So your consistent colors, your logos, your photography, your fonts, your brand voice, those things that we were talking about with making sure incorporating all of your platforms seamlessly, all of that bleeds into your brand expression as well. A lot of that, the design elements of that, the graphic assets, your logos, colors, those kinds of things, those are things that you shouldn't necessarily be building on your own, right? Those are things that are beneficial to get some guidance from a professional designer or a marketing expert so that you can have long-lasting assets that reflect your internal brand, your brand substance. The visual should always reflect what's on the inside. And it should always provide a smooth customer journey. So exactly what Amy was talking about, wanting to incorporate all of these elements together so that that journey is nice and smooth along the way. Something that I like to say about a lot of different elements in marketing, but the customer journey in particular and that marketing strategy is that it's kind of like driving. If it's good, the customer won't notice it. If it's bad, they definitely will, right? They will notice the breaks between what happens on your Instagram versus what happens on your website, right? They will notice if there's a break in consistency between your voice, or if you use a different logo in one spot than another. So that smooth customer journey is part of your content strategy and is really important for making sure that your customer builds a good relationship with you. Sometimes they may not notice what those elements are that they're kind of finding cause a little dissonance inside and kind of feel a little uncomfortable. They may not recognize what that is, but it actually leads to things like a break in trust where they don't feel like they can trust you. Maybe it's subconscious, maybe it's they recognize that, but all of those things together help to build a really solid foundation for a customer journey, for a good experience for them. Anything else to add to that, Ryan? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I really like this screen. For myself, it helps me to understand that this hub and spoke model where your website is at the center. In a perfect world, you're trying to drive prospective and real customers back to your website because you control the experience. It's your branding, it's your messaging, it's your promotions, maybe of e-commerce. But the content strategy of the content that you're creating that's trying to engage with your audience, it's likely that that content is going to find its audience at the tips of these sort of spokes as well. So when we're talking about content strategy, it's not to say that you can't create, for example, long form content that will live on your website as a blog, for example. But it's likely that that long form content is going to be chunked into smaller pieces that you're going to distribute out to Facebook, to Instagram, to LinkedIn. So usually when the word content strategy sort of enters the conversation, you can think of that content is meant to be pushed out, distributed. You're meant to find audiences out away from the website with a goal of driving them back to the website. So I just wanted to kind of give you that visual and that way of thinking of it as a content goes out to bring people in.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great visual. And very often what you'll hear are terms called inbound and outbound marketing. And basically that just describes where you find people, right? So getting to meet people where they are and bringing them back into your hub, right? All right, so that leads us to then some actual steps, right? What are the steps to building a good content strategy? Because we've talked about a lot of different elements, but how does that all come together? So first things first, refer back to your brand, right? Go through the steps to find out who you are and establish your audience personas. Define what that looks like. Understand where you sit in the market, who your competitors are, what you offer, what your differentiators are, and how you can present that to your audience in an effective way. What they need versus what you can offer, and then bridge that gap with your core message, with your brand voice, with your storytelling, and all of those elements as well. Okay. So, number one, refer back to your brand. Always start there. Okay, next, setting your goals, right? When I talked about what a good content strategy does, it builds on your business and brand goals. So how do you set goals? One of my favorite techniques is called the SMART goal method. And this is a very common framework that is pretty ubiquitous around the world. And it lays out 5 elements of goal setting that will help you become more successful, that will help lay out a goal that's realistic and will actually be achieved. So the first element of that is specific. You have to be clear about what it is that you're trying to do, right? Very often people will look at their goals and say, well, I want to increase revenue. I need to make more money, right? Okay, that's great. How? What does that mean? What does that look like, right? So we have to be specific about what it is that we're trying to accomplish in order to reach that end goal of making more money, right? So in this example here, we're looking at increasing the Digital Marketing Academy enrollments, right? We want to have more people trained on how to build their own marketing and get really good skill sets in digital marketing so that they can grow. Okay, so that's our specific. Our measurable is giving us something tangible that we can count. So give yourself a number. What is it that is going to actually move the needle, right? If we were to just say increase Digital Marketing Training Academy enrollments, does that mean 1? Does that mean 75, right? We don't have an actual number to equate to success. That benchmark is really important to be able to track along the way. Do we need to be doing more? Are we doing well? And it gives us that end benchmark, right? That passing grade. So give yourself a number. Attainable. is this actually realistic? Is this going to be something that we can actually do? If I were to say I want 100 enrollments, maybe that's not quite as attainable, right, as 10. Now we have to lay out how we're actually going to, what the measures that we're putting in place in order to make this happen. What are the ways that we are actually going to achieve this? So we're going to do things like engage partnerships with Business Link, right? And be able to provide education to a lot more people that way, right? We're going to maybe increase our ads budget so that we can cast our net a little bit wider and make more of an impact digitally, right? The fourth step is relevance. So this is where we want to point back to our brand. Is this actually going to reflect who we are and what our audiences need, right? So a core of our brand, like Ryan said at the very beginning, is to help empower small and medium businesses in the province to build your own digital marketing effectively, right? So yes, this goal is very much relevant to who we are and to our own core values, and it's very much relevant to our audiences as well, right? So the relevance here is that idea of helping small and medium businesses learn how to market themselves effectively. All right. Now we have to give ourselves a due date, right? When do we need to have met this mark, right? This gives us a timeline to be able to give ourselves those check marks along the way. We can assess ourselves at that halfway point. We've got 8 months till the end of the year. Okay, so maybe at the 4-month mark from now, I'm going to come back and say, okay, so I should have had around 10 or around 5 enrollments right now if I want to stay on track, right? So this gives us that calendar to be able to check mark along the way to make sure we're meeting our goals and having success. So these things together really give you that stepping stone to actually be successful rather than just saying one part of it. Now you have your checklist to go through and actually be successful along the way. This is a really great framework to use when you're planning campaigns, when you're setting general marketing goals, personal goals in your life. All of this framework has been really successful kind of globally to increase your success. All right, we have our goals. Now we have to decide on our platforms, right? So we refer back to our brand and look at who our audiences are and where they exist online. So we are, for this particular goal right now, we're focusing on small and medium businesses. So LinkedIn is probably a really good platform for us. Pinterest, maybe not so much, right? So I'm going to focus on LinkedIn, email, Google My Business, probably not Pinterest and TikTok quite as much because that's not where my target audience is going to be, right? So we want to select the platforms that are going to make the most impact so that we can be strategic with our time, because all of this takes time. And I'm sure all of you here wear many, many different hats, and it takes a lot to implement these strategies, right? So be strategic with where you are putting your time and the platforms that you're using to facilitate those things, right? So YouTube is really great for long form educational content. TikTok and Instagram are great for that short form, really engaging, authentic, kind of human to human relationship. Facebook is good for kind of longer text posts with some really great imagery. LinkedIn, educational content is really good for LinkedIn. And your website is optimal for blogging, which is going to be that long form educational content. Email is also really good for a little bit of a longer form, but it's very much, the purpose of it is to drive people back to your website as well. Any thoughts on platforms at all? Amy or Ryan, jump in here, share a little bit about how you strategically use platforms.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. At BusinessLink or any of the organizations I've been part of previously, certainly what you're saying about prioritizing the channels that are most effective, most active for you, have the most engagement makes sense. And that's definitely something that we do at BusinessLink. Ryan said it earlier, quality over quantity. And that's something that our team definitely prides ourselves in and try to remember. But yeah, I think those are kind of my thoughts on the channels. I would say start small if you're just starting out. just pick a couple of these. Maybe you're focused on that blog and you're just going to keep it really with your website initially and then grow some of your social channels from
Mhm.
there. Or maybe, you don't even have a website. Maybe you just have an Etsy account or something. So it's like Google My Business, where you're focused on the reviews and that generating content from someone after they've received your product. Yeah, initial
Mhm.
thoughts. Over to you,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah, I could imagine on this graphic, Megan, we could sort of just where the email is coming off the center there, having a little something that indicates a blog on the website. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I work with a lot of clients when we're building websites. Should I add a blog? A lot of times the answer is no. Unless they have the time to create that long form content, a blog is a bad idea because it's going to sit empty. But if you do commit to creating long form content on a blog, even once a month, you create a good blog article, and ChatGPT and tools like that can help a lot. I won't get into too much detail there. That long form content, once created, it doesn't take much to modify it to repurpose it for email. So all of a sudden you've committed to creating some content that is going to put you in a position to do two types of long form content that are going to be used differently. The other benefit I mentioned earlier about long form content with a blog is you can very easily chunk that into short form content that can then be leveraged on Facebook or LinkedIn, etc. So not all content types are equal, let's say. Some take more resource time to do well, but once you do that well, you put yourself in such a good position to use that to inform the rest of your micro content, let's call it, through social media. So that's the part that I
Yeah.
want to share there. And I think of blog content and email marketing content as quite similar in the work
Mhm.
required to create it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Few really great questions in the chat and Q&A here. So, what circumstances would Pinterest be an effective channel? Pinterest is a very, very unique section kind of the internet. It operates kind of like a database in some ways, but it really requires things like a blog or an e-commerce store to be effective. And it's very focused on aesthetics and putting out kind of how-to content, DIY, home improvement, inspiration, visuals, those kinds of things. So if your business is focused on um, recipes, wedding content, you've got an e-commerce store or a really effective blog, those would be areas where Pinterest would be a really great avenue to explore for businesses who are really focused on like maybe a B2B, a business to business, where you're working with other businesses. Maybe not the best option for you, right? So that is where that would probably be best. I see Brian did refer to X/Twitter, and I just wanted to add to that as well because I actually did intentionally remove X from this because X is a very conversational platform. It's very fast paced. And for small and medium businesses, it's very difficult to get traction surrounding marketing services on Twitter. You can advertise, and there are results, great results that come from X. But in terms of an organic platform, it's not going to give you the same results or even really comparable results to things like Facebook, for example. And then another question here were, what are some good guiding questions or frameworks to understand where your target customers are? A lot of target market kind of, you can look at, there's a lot of studies online to kind of determine where the demographics are on these different platforms. But first, you got to understand who your target audience is, right? Who is it that you are trying to speak to? And then look at the type of content that's best suited on each of these platforms, because that will be a little bit of a more guiding factor there. All right. So we talked a little bit about platforms. Now the next step is content pillars. So understanding what type of content are you going to be putting out? So the way that I kind of like to look at content pillars is it's based in your brand foundations and it's a way that you are connecting with your audience. So it's types of content, or I guess kind of content themes that you're sharing throughout your channels that will help you connect with your audience. And again, it's based in your brand foundation, so who you are. I've seen a lot of people basically take their brand values, their core values, and turn them into content pillars. So if they value education, then that's going to be one of their content pillars, right? So these are just ways that you can think about the type of content that you're putting out through your blog, through your social media, through your email, all of those different channels, and how that's coming across and connecting with your audience. So in this example, we have brand awareness. We want to try and get our name out to people, right? We can't access audiences if they don't know who we are, right? So brand awareness is a great pillar to just kind of foundationally have. Service promotion. People aren't going to come to us for services if they don't know what we do, right? So part of that is sales, part of that is kind of that traditional marketing of, do you need print services? Well, we've got this. Here's our website. Give us a call, right? So this is a really important one to incorporate. A lot of marketers tend to feel a little awkward about service promotion because it feels kind of pushy and salesy. That's why we want to incorporate it into a broader strategy so that people are still informed about what we do and how to contact us and how to get back to our service pages on our website in order to get what they need, but it's incorporated along with a lot of other elements too. So then we can share some educational content or behind the scenes showing a little bit, how the sausage is made, how we put these things together, right? So maybe we'll share a video of one of our designers designing a logo mock-up or something like that, right? So we can see a little bit more about how those things come together. And then the last one here that I have is testimonials. That are happy customers are our best ambassadors. So using promotional material from testimonials, from portfolio pieces is a really great way to show off what you've done. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, there's just some really great comments from Derek here I wanted to sort of raise in, and so you can read them in the comments as well, or in the chat. But Derek is pointing out tools like SMS, for example, where I would say SMS, like text messaging, is probably not one where you're developing a content strategy to release the content through SMS. Rather, you would think of that as an alert. I'm using SMS to send someone a short, catchy, clear call to action with a link. And that link is going to bring you to the long form content, which might be a blog article about the upcoming promotion, or it could bring you to an e-commerce page where they could buy said product, or to a Facebook page where once they click like, they're entered for a contest, or any number of things. So I bring this in because when there's that hub and spoke model, depending on the platform, sometimes it's a channel for maybe alerts like SMS, whereas otherwise it might be a channel where the long form content lives. And so it's a subtle difference, but it's exactly right, Derek. So I appreciate that question. SMS and email marketing, we have tools in our platform, our tech platform, to be able to enable that. And SMS does not make sense to consider unless you have a content strategy that you've really mapped out that sort of gives you a good reason why you should be sending a text alert to people to drive them to said promotion, offer, etc. So a great discussion in the chat there.
Yeah. Another great question. What is the best way to request testimonials from your customers? Asking for them. Email if they are happy. The best thanks is to leave a review. Have a link to your review on your Google My Business or your Facebook, right? That is, yeah, the happiest moment in their journey, if that's at the very end when they are made a successful purchase or had a great interaction with you, or maybe it's at one of the first points when you're interacting with them and they get that first piece of material from you that they're really, really happy with, right? So yeah, Ryan has a really good point. Ask them at the moment, at their happiest point in the journey. Absolutely. All right. So now we've gone through the brand, we've checked that off, we've set our goals, we've established our platforms, our pillars, and now it comes down to the actual planning, right? None of this is going to be effective if we don't actually put it into practice, right? So how do we put it all together and streamline and make it actually happen? So first is a content mapping. So we have to figure out what it is that we're actually going to talk about. So this is content mapping is something that is really helpful for brainstorming and identifying where the key areas that you can produce content for are. So the way that I like to put this together is kind of like a mind map. So we have one main topic. So for this example, we're looking at digital marketing. For you, it could be one of your core service areas or one of your core products, right? For brand awareness, it maybe is one of your core values, right? So it really could be any topic under the sun that you're comfortable, happy to talk about that's relevant to your business, right? So in this example, we're looking at digital marketing. Then we're going to break it out into smaller bite-sized pieces, right? So in digital marketing, there's 1.5 million things that we could talk about. We're going to look at SEO, social media, and digital design, right? So we're breaking things out into smaller segments and we're kind of compartmentalizing them. Now within those, we're then breaking those into even smaller sections, right? So we've got on-site SEO, off-site SEO. We could talk about local SEO. We could talk about technical SEO and website development elements that help. We could talk about the connection between social media and SEO, right? There's so many different topics. And we're going to do that for each of these smaller sections. And then if we really wanted to, we could even break those into smaller pieces, right? So Canva tools, we could talk about our presentations. We could talk about Canva brand kits. We could talk about Canva templates. So within each of these, the goal is to break these down into really small bite-sized sections so that when we start thinking about our content strategy and how we want everything to be mapped over all of those different platforms, we can think about, okay, this month, maybe I'm going to be talking about SEO. So I could write 2 different blog posts, one on on-site SEO, one on off-site SEO. And then within those, I could break those out into smaller social media posts, right? And so once we have our content map kind of built out, then we can start looking at actually planning it out and mapping it out onto a calendar. And how are we going to implement this in real time? So here we can see, if we're using the example of SEO, okay, so we've got 2 blog posts that I want to post this month. One is going to be on offsite SEO, one is going to be on onsite SEO. And then from there, I can see that I want to post a couple social media posts. I'm going to have a few email campaigns, and I'm going to have a few YouTube videos, right? So we're taking this chunk here, one small section of this big map, and we're turning it into 1 month's worth of content across multiple different platforms, depending on, again, what it is that you are, or the platforms that you're engaging. This is a really great, easy snapshot to be able to see kind of comprehensively from a high level how that all comes together. It's very difficult to say, okay, I'm going to post every Wednesday, and then Wednesday morning rolls around and you think, gosh, what am I going to post on social media today? Or, man, I really haven't actually done a blog post in maybe 3 months. How am I going to engage people to go back to my website, right? So this gives you a plan in place. So maybe it comes to content creation day, you have a plan, you have an idea, you've got your content map to be able to come back to generate ideas. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Yes, Lisa asked a good question. Please explain SEO. Us marketers, we're the worst. SEO acronyms, no one likes acronyms. SEO stands for search engine optimization. Throw that word out. It really means what are the things you need to do to ensure that you show up higher on search engines like Google, like Yahoo, like Bing. It falls into 3 categories, and there's a lot of technical details, but it means first, your website has to be technically properly built. It should be mobile friendly. It should be built using the proper technology. Your photos should not be so large that they take forever to load. So everything should be optimized technically. So that's one category. The next thing is that on your website, you should have relevant information about your products and services. So if we do print, but our website doesn't talk about print, Google doesn't know that we do print. So Google's not wrong. Our website is wrong. We haven't been sufficiently clear about all of our products and services, our phone number, our address, etc. But then Google also looks at what other properties off of your website, Facebook pages, LinkedIn, your directory listing on Better Business Bureau or Chamber of Commerce, to the extent that those all reference and link back to your website, that significantly improves your standing in search engines. The more people, the more external sites that are referencing and linking back to you. So it's really, your website is properly technically built. You have good relevant content on your website, and you have lots of relevant, trustworthy sources linking back to you. That is the magic of SEO. It's those 3 things. It gets real technical, but it's nothing more than that.
Yeah. And next month, we are actually presenting our topic is SEO. So if you are interested in learning more about it, definitely register for that one. Amy, I see you popped on camera there. What would you like to add?
Yeah, thanks for the example here. Definitely, I think this is a good B2B example, but I think it's good to give some context to kind of what you're saying and think about it. Perhaps I'm going to give an example. So let's say that you own an ice cream shop, and maybe for long form content, you have recently come up with a new flavor. And it's a great opportunity for you to create content on all of these different channels. So perhaps you choose to write a blog about why you came up with this flavor and what ingredients are in it. And that could be, have photos in it. That could be your long form piece. And then you take that content and you're applying it into email in terms of the video component. Maybe you film a little bit of a BTS or behind the scenes content to bring that to light on your social channels or on YouTube. And then when it comes to social, it's got to be fast. It's got to be a quick quip or a quick image. So maybe it's an image and it's like, 3 reasons I decided to create this ice cream flavor, and maybe make a little panel, a card for like a carousel or a story or something. So just wanted to share, sorry for
Yeah,
taking up a couple minutes, but a
no,
different
that's perfect.
example to get people thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Another really great question in the chat there. When it comes to Facebook and Instagram, is there a recommended number of posts slash videos that should be made? So the amount that you're posting is really almost, it's not irrelevant, but it's not as impactful as being consistent, right? So being able to share, if we say, maybe I only have time for 3 posts a week, make 3 posts a week. If you have a dedicated marketing team that is able to put out maybe 3 reels a week and have graphic posts going out every single day and social media stories and write blog posts once a week, great, that's awesome, as long as you can maintain that and keep up with that. So that's a little bit more important. What is a good platform for content calendar scheduling? We actually, it depends on your needs. We'll talk a little bit about this actually at the end, because we do have, that is part of our content
Spoiler.
platform, but
Yeah, sorry, Megan, to jump over you. I
yeah,
gave a spoiler alert in the chat there. We have technology
yeah,
tools that we use, and we can talk about that. Sorry to cut you off.
yeah, absolutely. No, that's perfect. All right. So in this example that we've been talking about, we've gone through kind of our brand. We've established that it connects to our brand because we are connecting with um, our own mission, and we've established that our audience is who our audience is and how we're connecting with them. Okay, we've established a good, clear goal using that SMART goal framework so that we are able to clearly check off those boxes, right? We've gone through our platforms, how we want to share on blogs, we want to use webinars, we want to use YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Those are the platforms that we're going to be using. Our pillars are going to be educational, kind of that sales slash service awareness, and brand awareness, right? Making sure that people are aware of who we are. And then how we're going to plan this is we're going to engage with our partners, right? Business Link, we're going to do our content mapping, we're going to use a content calendar, and schedule webinars and things like that, right? So this is just a snapshot, a very, very simplified version of how to map out a little bit of a content strategy that makes it much easier and streamlined to go along the journey. Now, I say streamlined for a very specific reason, because all of us, like I had mentioned before, wear many hats and only have so much time in the day to make it happen. So how are we going to effectively implement a complex marketing strategy, or even come up with a complex marketing strategy, when we only have so many hours in the day? Well, this is where our tools come in, right? Where we use the tools that are available to us out in the big wide world, right? AI is one of those tools that make it significantly easier and more efficient to be able to get you to that endpoint, right? What we're not doing is we're not asking AI to define things for us. We are giving it parameters to help us along the way, right? So where this all comes together is looking at our brand strategy, foundationally who we are, who our target audiences are, how we want to come across in the market, and kind of our core service areas, our differentiators, those kinds of things. Then we come into AI and we write a really well-formed prompt that lays out those parameters. Or maybe we have a custom GPT that we pre-trained already with all of those parameters, right? Then we are able to get better results from our AI systems, right? Now, with that being said, you're still not going to just take that and put it out into the world. You're not going to rely on that 100%. You're still going to come back into that and quality control and reassess and make sure that it got those points correct, but it did the bulk of the work for you, right? So when we start at the very beginning, we can go and ask for help creating a content strategy. These are my goals. This is my brand. These are my target audiences. This is what I'm trying to promote, right? These are the platforms. These are my content pillars. And this is what I need for a content strategy, from a content strategy. Then it will be able to produce something that's much more effective than if you just come to it and ask for a generic content strategy, a generic marketing strategy, right? So that's why we have to kind of understand all of these things. Even if we do have access to these really, really powerful tools, we still have to know how to implement those things so that we have the best results and we can guide those tools the best way possible. Key takeaways from today here. One, it will always, always, always come back to brand first, right? It will always start with you and your audiences. Use SMART goals to make your strategy more achievable, right? Give yourself measurable results. Give yourself those benchmarks. Give yourself a timeline. Make sure it's relevant to you. It's actually attainable. All of those things are really, really important to actually be able to build a really strong strategy. The other part of that too is actually the mental side of things. You're less likely to achieve good results if you don't believe that you can, right? So being able to build these goals really strategically helps you feel more confident in your own abilities and will naturally help push you towards achieving those goals better. All platforms should tell a cohesive story, mapping out what that looks like, what your content is going to look like across your channels, tells the cohesive story. And again, we don't want to scare people off with our bad driving and make sure that that customer journey throughout is smooth and cohesive. Use tools to help you build an actionable plan. So going back to the AI example, using really effective, strong tools like AI, like ChatGPT, like any myriad of others that are available out there, using them to help you build an actionable plan so that you can implement those steps along the way. All right. Before we get into, I guess, the next segment of it, Amy, Ryan, did you have any other final last thoughts about content marketing?
No, other than there's lots of great questions and the people are sitting privately, and we won't have time for all of them today, but we cover this aplenty in our training academy. So just a reminder for everyone. I don't think I have anything else, Megan, just maybe a clock watch for you. We're at about 11:47.
Yes, awesome. Amy, what about you?
Great framework today. Thank you, Megan and Ryan. I feel like you've really framed it up for people. Just advice, start small, make sure that you have those goals set because that's really going to be helpful. Find efficiencies where you can, use AI where you can. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so coming up, we've got a few great webinars coming up for you. So we referenced this a little bit earlier, spoiler alert. Search engine optimization is going to be the next session. So we talked about content strategy first because that's the foundation. But next week we're going to be, or next month, I guess, we're going to be talking about search engines. So how to rank higher in search and what are some of the technical elements that we can implement. Then we will talk about email marketing. We switched our topics up a little bit because it sounds like email marketing is one that was pretty highly requested. So we're going to be talking about how to implement that in your strategies. And then we're going to be talking about understanding artificial intelligence. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about how AI works and how to implement it in your strategies as well. Which brings us to the spoiler alert that Ryan was talking about, the new product. So what we are doing, we referenced this last month as well, but we're actually going to be launching this in the next couple weeks here. So really exciting stuff. This is a unified tool that incorporates all of these elements that we were talking about with the different platforms and AI tools and social management. So there's a lot of different apps that we can incorporate into this dashboard depending on what your needs actually are. So there's a lot of custom elements to that. But the goal here is to, well, we can give you all of the information. Very, very often what happens once students learn all of these skills and tools is, okay, well, now what? What tools do I need? How do I implement this in real life, right? So this is what we found to fill that gap, right? So to provide you with the opportunity for a little bit more of a more affordable option for some of that those tech platforms, because they can get quite expensive quite quickly. So that's part of it, as well as being able to bring everything into one unified space so that it's not, you don't have a tech stack of 15 different programs. It's a little bit more streamlined into one. So really exciting stuff. We're going to be launching this in the next couple weeks publicly. So if you're wanting to get onto that and find a demo and see kind of what we have to offer, sign up through our mailing list here, and we will be launching this in the next couple of weeks. So it's really exciting information that we have coming about that and how that's going to really change the landscape for small and medium businesses around the province and Canada. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to state this a little bit differently. We've been doing our training academy now for about 2.5 years, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
what was a common sort of thread or discussion that we had with students once they graduated is that they had the skills, the knowledge, the confidence to be able to manage, strategize social media, digital marketing, email marketing, websites, etc. And then immediately they're like, well, but what tools do I use? And there's so many tools out there, like the technology platforms, MailChimp for email marketing, or what's the tool where you can manage all your social media in one place? Where do you do your calendar content planning? So this year in 2025, what we did is we've onboarded a new technology platform, which really ties together. So now when students are going through our training academy, they're not just learning the skills and the confidence and the certification to be able to navigate through this world of digital marketing. We're pairing it with the tools as well. So that is something we recognized as a missing gap. And we're really excited to be introducing this as well. The tools are not mandatory. We offer them as optional. You're going to have to use some tools, and these are the ones that we use for ourselves and the ones that we support through our programming as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of questions in the Q&A there. How do we sign up for upcoming webinars? Those are available on the BusinessLink website, businesslink.ca/events. Those are really excellent webinars and really amazing resources as well. All right. I see that there's a couple more questions being answered there, but we are right kind of at the tail end of our time here. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. If you are interested in reaching out, learning a little bit more about training, about really anything digital marketing related, find our website, 910.ca, or reach out to us as well. We would be more than happy and excited to chat with any and all of you. So I will turn it back over to Amy to wrap us up and send us on our way.
Yeah, thanks, Megan, and thanks, Ryan, for all of this content today. This is really interesting concepts and good things to think about. I just want to touch on there are still some questions coming in, some really specific to individuals' businesses in the Q&A. BusinessLink has a digital marketing program. It's free. You can get paired with our digital marketing strategist, and that's a great opportunity to ask some of these specific questions about your business related to channel strategy, social media strategy. So I encourage you to go to our website, businesslink.ca, and take a look at that. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Speaking of providing feedback, after we conclude today's webinar, there'll be an opportunity to fill out a survey to provide us feedback. We really value your feedback and thoughts, so excited to hear from you on thoughts about this webinar and what we can do to make them better in the future. So Thank you very much for that, everyone. And be sure to sign up for the Business Link newsletter to stay informed of our upcoming webinars. So thank you again, Megan and Ryan, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Take care. Thank
Enjoy your
you.
long weekend.
Thank you.